give me one shot here on a blue chip stock, believe me, Kevin, the only problem you're gonna have is that you didn't buy more.
Nobody knows if the stock is gonna go up, down, sideways, or in circles.
What is going on, NBA draft fans? Your boys are back. The Wolves of Wall Street. Your favorite draft analyst. My name is Corey Tulaba. I'm here, as always, with my guy, Albert Garbage Time Gim. We are the Draft Act NBA Draft Show on the No Ceilings NBA Network. Albert, big day today. Fun episode. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. As much as I absolutely love potting just with you one-on-one, just the two of us, it's always nice when we can bring in visitors and special guests. And today we have a very special guest. So I'm going to quit talking. And Corey, we can go ahead and intro our guest.
Yeah, we have USC's Drew Peterson with us today. Drew, what's going on, man? How you doing?
How's it going? By the way, awesome intro with that Wolf of Wall Street stuff. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
It's going well, though. It's going well.
Yeah, we like to call these segments where we actually get like players on to like chop it up, insider trading. You know, this is all about, draft stock and, fun little play on stuff. And, Wolf of Wall Street is a classic fun movie. So we gotta set the tone and bring the energy from the start. So just a little background. Senior wing, 23 years old, listed at 6'9", 205. Is that accurate?
Yes, definitely the height. Dropped a little weight as the season goes on naturally.
Sure.
Sitting about, 196, 197 right now. So, but yeah, peaked at 205.
Nice. Very nice. We're having a great year, filling the stat sheet up, 14.6 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, nearly 5 assists, 1.1 steal, almost a block a game, shooting 46% from the floor, 37% from three, 75% from the line. So, you could tell by your stat sheet that you've just been doing a little bit of everything this year. But for those of you who aren't familiar, with Drew's game, how would you describe your game to somebody who hasn't watched?
I think what defines me is versatility. I think I try to do a little bit of everything out there, and I think I attack, offensively, whatever the defense gives me. If you got a smaller guy on me, I like to kind of walk him down, and a bigger guy on me, I like to stretch him out and, space the floor and try and attack him off the dribble. So I try to do a little bit of everything, and I think that's been showcased this year and, the last couple seasons. And, I've tried to progress each year, and I think that's what's happening. So I'm excited. I just try and do whatever I can on the floor to help the team.
Drew, actually, as a follow-up question to that, Corey just went through your stat line. Awesome numbers, right? You're doing so much, and the impact that you're bringing to the court every single time you're on the floor of USC, it's palpable, right? And we're going to talk about different aspects of your game for sure. But I think, as Corey mentioned at the top, you are a senior, right? And you've spent a couple of years now in college. Was wondering, you mentioned your versatility as being your strength. That's something that you really take a lot of pride in. Is that something that's always been a part of your game, or is that something that's kind of developed during your time in college and over the years?
It's always been a focus of mine. Obviously, fine-tuned it over the last few years, and every year the main goal is to progress. I think some guys kind of plateau a little bit, and I've hoped to progress every year, and like I said, fine-tune my skills. But growing up, I know it's cliche. Watching LeBron, though, it's a guy where I tend to trend a little more to trying to be able to pass very well, and I think one of my strengths is to be able to pass out of double teams and find the open big. And, I know that's such a key factor, especially at the next level with positionless basketball and where everything's trending. So I think it's always just been a goal of mine to impact the game any way I can. Hypothetically, an off shooting night, hopefully, I can get 8 or 9 assists and vice versa. And, defensively, I think I've improved a lot over the last few years. So like I said, I try and pride myself on just, being a plug-in piece and, doing whatever I can to, help a team out.
Yeah, I think that's, apparent in your game. And we're going to, get into your passing later because you got some sauce to you. Before we do that though, you're out in LA. It's the winter. You grew up in Illinois. You missing the Illinois winters right now?
Definitely not. We just came back from what's funny, we just came back from Colorado and Utah, and can't say it was too fun regarding the weather. I don't mind the snow. I don't mind the snow, but the wind chill, getting down to near zero is not fun. And So it's good to be able to, even earlier in my career at Rice, I was in Houston, so I've been used to the warm weather now for 5 years. So it's great. It's been awesome, my entire career.
As somebody who's currently living in Los Angeles as well, I have to say we've had one of the coldest winters we've had in a long time. I've only lived in LA now for 5 years, and this is the coldest it's ever been, and the amount of rain we've gotten has been unbelievable. So hope you're
Yeah.
in there, bro.
I heard the last 4 or 5 days were terrible. I was happy I actually missed that. It was one of our road trips, so it's good.
So what was the basketball like the basketball scene like in Illinois, like growing up for you?
Oh, it was good. I think there's a lot of pride with Chicago basketball and the history behind it. And I was a little bit north of the city, but with AAU and everything, and my network and connections, I was down in the city, a good amount playing, and I got great connections with all the players from around there, and so it's great to be a part of that and grow up with that. Where I'm from in the north suburbs, a town called Libertyville, it's not as relevant. Our conference pride is Jalen Brunson from Stevenson. So he was a few years before me. He was a senior when I was a freshman, but we had a lot of talent. We had guys like Admiral Schofield in that class, and other guys like that. So to name a few, but it's great. It's awesome. I really appreciated where I was from and how fortunate I was, to grow up in that area, and it's great. It's been a great progression throughout the whole career.
Yeah, for sure. Were you a Bulls fan growing up? Or you just kind of like, a lot of guys we get on here and they're like, I didn't really had a team, but I loved LeBron.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm the same way. I mean, I was always a LeBron guy, but the D Rose era in the Bulls was awesome. So it's great to see that, and hoping the Bulls can obviously get back to that point. So
yeah, you and me both. Let's talk about your game a little bit. And normally we start with shooting, and that's like a huge part of your game, but you touched on your passing, so we're going to switch it up because I think it's a really fun part of your game. And, the vision that you show sometimes comes out of nowhere. You're like, wow, like that is a high level read where you thread the needle through, a bunch of defenders in a tight space. What are you seeing when you make this pass?
Yeah, I think especially for that play specifically, it's Washington's a heavy zone team, and I think finding those soft spots where you can get just a glimpse of daylight with the pass. If I can see it, I'm all with the theory of kind of high volume, high risk, high reward. Sometimes trying to make those extra passes will lead to a couple more turnovers, but at the end of the day, 9 assists, 3 turnovers isn't too bad. So something like that is something where I'm really willing to take the risk if there's a little glimpse of daylight, and I try and get there before the defender gets there. So it's great, and I try and my teammates trust me to make those reads, and it's been awesome so far with the season, being able to put guys in the right spots in that way.
Drew, when I was actually writing the piece about you, it was actually this game where I pulled a ton of your passing highlights. Like, you had some wild ones. I think there was one in this game off of a offensive rebound. You're kind of at the top of the key, and you threw this like behind the back hook pass to the big for like an easy layup. And just watching this game, and honestly, all of your games, it's been really interesting to watch the amount of trust that you've garnered with your coach and the team. You just mentioned, right? Your teammates really trust you. And something that I notice is the connection that you have with guys like Trey White, guys like Kobe Johnson. It's been really interesting to watch. And before I did my deep dive of your game, it wasn't really something that I was expecting, right? But was wondering what's been the progression like from your first year in USC till now, with the amount of trust that you've gained with your coach, with your teammates, and what that whole process looks like?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a comfortability thing. Getting kind of a little bit more of a leash and stuff like that has been able to provide me with a little more wiggle room with making those extra plays, and a little more confidence that worst case, even if it goes wrong, it's something that I'm trusted to do with the coach. And I think that like I said, it's high risk, high reward, but sometimes. But I think trying to make those plays has benefited more than it's not this year. And there's some games where my coach tries to kind of tame it back, and there's games where I know there's a little bit too many turnovers, and so it's something where I've been able to build that trust, but also find the right balance going out through the year, and fine tune even that aspect of my game where I can be very kind of confident and almost careless, but in a good way with my passes to try and provide especially against teams like that zone up and really pack it in. There's a lot less space to work with, a lot less kind of holes they provide. So it's something where I'm really trying to put our team in the best spots as much as possible.
That pass that you made against that Washington zone from the top of the key, you're kind of hitting like the block, the like short porch guy. Like that's something typically like maybe you would do from the nail, and you're doing it out at the 3-point line. How much does being 6'9" and having that vision help?
Oh yeah, it's key. I think the biggest thing for me this year right now is especially with the double teams. I think that we're a great team that can work off those because even when you got a guy that usually teams typically double off the big, I can with a little bit of a jump I can get it over top and find the opposite wing, and then worst case it's a swing to the corner, and I think we can get a lot. We generate a lot of open threes, especially as of recent off of that. So I think. Like I said, growing up watching LeBron, being able to pass with that size, I think it's just such a key, and gives such an advantage to be able to steer over the defense in those situations.
And in this next clip, there's a little bit of LeBron, a little showtime here, a little behind the back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was something I saw a guy come behind me. I couldn't tell who it was, but I knew someone was going to be there, and I trusted him to make the play, and thankfully he did, and it was great. Like I said, it's come with the season with building confidence and trust, and my passing and stuff like that, and yeah, sometimes like to put on a little bit for the cameras, so it was nice. It was great. It was great.
How much do those kind of plays like shift the momentum of a game for your team?
It's great, especially with the home crowd. I think we've won like something like 15 in a row at home, or 14 in a row at home. So it's great to be able to get that and get the guys excited. And I think the biggest thing for us, we really pride ourselves on our defense, but the biggest thing for us is really playing loose offensively. I hope to show that those plays can help, take those risks. A guy that's hesitant to shoot, take that shot, and something like that. I hope kind of sparks like a swagger we have offensively. And I think that's what has found us a lot of success in the last few weeks.
If I can just follow up on what you just said about the looseness or the ethos of playing loose, right, with your team right now, I think that's something that really pops off the screen as well. And something that I noticed with you especially is Corey all the time talks about good process in the way that we play, right? And with shooters, right? If you're a really good shooter, right, playing off the defense, making the right read after hitting a jump shot, knowing how to attack a closeout, right? But watching you, I think one of the things that I noticed a lot was you're really good about playing off of your shooting gravity, but also I felt like your movement off the ball was really important as well. And as you put yourself into better spots to catch the ball, whether it's on the baseline, dunker spot, wherever it may be, I felt like you've always, from what I found at least, I thought you did a really good job of leveraging that, not into just opportunities for yourself, but opportunities for your teammates as well. Do you think you could speak on kind of like the selflessness of moving and being active and being loose, as you mentioned, and getting yourself in good positions for yourself and your teammates?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing going off that is to say that I try to analyze the game and different almost like chess moves where if I can play off a closeout to get my team in a 4-on-3 on the opposite side, if I can draw two, then I've done my job. And what I try and do is get it to a player then who can make the next read on that. And so I do anything I can to garner the defense's attention. And I think playing off certain spots, where I can like you said in the Washington, even if it's a zone where just you can draw two people and then let your team do the rest of the work, and kind of I try and make it as easy as I can when my teammate catches the ball to be able to play off another closeout or to play off a 2-on-1 in the corner potentially. So anything I can do to leverage like a leveraged position for our team to continue that is my goal ultimately when I get the ball, and whether that be shooting or passing off that, just trying to find the advantages we can in each defensive format and rotation that they get into.
And I think as you continue to, jump up levels, like that connectivity, that like quick thinking 0.5 style is, what really makes it hard for a defense to guard. And I think, between yourself and Trey and like Kobe, like you guys have all of these guys that have like this great size and vision And it just seems like it's, it would be really fun to play with you guys. And when you see that looseness, that freedom that you play with, yeah, it seems like it's contagious, and it would just be a lot of fun because everyone's getting to kind of touch the ball, and it's not sticking nearly as much. But outside of that, also, like, you got really good vision in the pick and roll. This is a couple of seasons ago. I think when we look at like passing too, like you mentioned being able to pass out of double teams and see the weak side corner, like how important is it to like be able to go through your progressions, maybe not even in a pick and roll, but if you are in the post, and cause these kind of scenarios where defenses kind of have to scramble out to shooters like this?
Yeah, no, 100% right. I think the game is the biggest thing for me, especially since my first year of college, is I always heard the term, have the game slow down for you. And as a freshman, I didn't really understand what that meant. And even after my first year at USC, I think the game has slowed down each year to where everything is, like you said, in those microseconds of where's the advantage. And, I think being able to draw that big and, for example, in this clip, getting over that initial help and having that weak side defender have to, help off Evan there. I think it's just really key. And, I try and find whoever's open. I understand that at a certain point, if there's 3 guys to our 2, someone's open. And sometimes I'll take that extra risk, which sometimes doesn't pay off of even jumping in the air and kind of analyzing it right there. And sometimes it happens to throw it out of bounds off that. But most of the time, I'm able to find that guy who's, standing relatively wide open, or to be able to create that 2-on-1 in the backside, and hopefully they can, finish off the job. But I think the biggest thing for me as I've gone throughout my career is the game being able to slow down. And like I said, one of the main things I like to do, even out of the post and smaller guards, is just being able to walk guys down. I don't like to go necessarily even into quick moves as much, because, I walk guys down and wait till I can get the defense to make a decision on what they're going to do on me. And, once that happens, I try and make the read and hopefully, create that advantage for the rest of my team.
Yeah, and I think again, Albert touched on your shooting gravity. I think you being a threat from like multiple spots on the floor, you could see how even in this clip where you start low and you pop up, like this is a very, an action you'll see at the next levels a lot, where you're coming off, running off a bunch of screens, and, they know that you're a threat to pass. You go right into another little, and you hit the roller seamlessly. So, I guess, is this kind of something that you feel like has always come naturally to you, where you can kind of read all of your different options on the floor and make these quick decisions?
Yeah. It's something that I feel like instinctually I have a good feel for. But once again, I think I've progressed a lot over my career, and being trusted to be put in these spots. And I think every year I've learned, what to do against, certain hard hedges or drop coverage. And I think I found better ways to attack it. I like to ask questions and, really analyze each microsecond. I'm a big guy, and, analyzing each second of when you can find a guy who's out of position, or the next guy will have a better position. So, for example, this clip, the big I thought was too far up, and, I had 2 guys basically occupied, and, we had Vince there who made a great play off catching it, and had a smaller guard rotate on the weak side. So it's something that I think just goes back to the game slowing down for me. And with me kind of studying coverages and stuff like that, it's been great this year for trying to help put my teammates in the right position.
Mm-hmm. Drew, you've been talking about how, when you first transitioned into college, there was kind of a jump. Then you went to USC, you felt like there was a bit of a jump, and you're telling us how, you're trying to feel the game out, try to slow things down, right? Watching what we just watched, right? And honestly, your coach has trusted you in a lot of pick and roll sets this year, either with Iwachuku or even at times with, with like Kobe Johnson or Trey White or whatever, right? I was just thinking, as you're running through these types of sets, that type of action, whatever, you talked about how on the next level, there's an importance in terms of versatility, right? Positionless basketball. Do you ever think about how, the type of stuff that you're doing now in college, how that's going to have, I know you want to focus on the season at hand. You want to have a good close out, a good part of your career here at USC, but do you ever think about the next step? Do you ever think about the next level, and how all the stuff that you're doing right now is going to have an effect on how you perform on the next level?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, like you mentioned, I'm focused on the season right now, but as I watch the NBA and kind of understand the transition to how the game is played with, not necessarily any position, just you have five guys on the floor, and my height and skill set, I think it gives me a lot of excitement to understand how I could kind of fit in on a team, and like I said, be a plug-in piece. I think that you could put me in a lot of different spots, and a lot of the game is just analyzing, once again, going from 4-on-3s to 3-on-2s to 2-on-1s, and then eventually that last guy takes that open three in the corner. So I think that that'd be a good piece regarding that, and I think I have a good knowledge of the game, and I'm excited to kind of see that next step. And like I said, it's different with a guy who's a little bit older. I think the difference is, I'm not as much a guy who's raw and who's gonna take a while to get used to everything. I think, with my knowledge, there's going to be obviously a learning curve, but I think I'm experienced enough and bring, a sense of, yeah, like I said, experience to, wherever I will end up. So I'm really ready to take that next step and hopefully showcase, kind of those tools that I have.
So we're gonna move on to your shooting in a minute, but I do want to show one last passing clip, because you did touch on sometimes, your creativity, you kind of, sometimes it's a little too much. But what I kind of love about this clip is, even though it results in a turnover, I love the confidence that you have, and I love, the vision, and clearly you have the trust and the freedom that you're like, I can throw this, and I'm not going to get, pulled immediately necessarily. At what point did you feel confident enough that, you could kind of do an over the head, no look, pass to a cutter?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually one of the first times I've seen that clip, because I was just cringe when I think about it, that it went right to the dig. I asked around, I was like, how did that get stolen? I thought he was wide open. Then I realized the dig was right over there. Yeah, no, it's something I've gotten throughout the season. And, I think it's another thing where you kind of, I'm really trying to put my teammates in the right positions. And, sometimes I think it's high risk, high reward, and I get a little too flashy. But I think, at certain points where you see guys like, Jokic and stuff like that making those plays, it's something that I'm trying to also kind of build as I go. I'm trying to understand it and feel those kind of passes out as I go. As we watched earlier, the behind the back worked out. That one didn't. And I'm gaining more trust by the game and making those harder and higher difficulty passes. So, yeah, this one didn't work out as well, but I think it just adds to the point of, another, let's say, like, data point to help calibrate my passing. So it's great. It's been awesome to be able to have that trust for my coach to not get pulled right away for that. I don't remember if I did or not. I don't think I did, but it's been great, especially just having that trust from my team and coaches to be able to make those type of plays.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like you have the creativity, the vision, you have the trust. Sometimes it works out, and you can't make those passes if you don't try them. Right. So like,
exactly.
some of them won't work out immediately. Let's talk about your shooting. Because I think, the thing at your height, being a guy who's knocking down a high percentage of shots at high volume, that's going to be something that is a real selling point for your game. And, I think that ability to serve off of the ball and not have to do everything on the ball. And you could do a little bit of that. And we have some clips that we'll show in a little bit. But right away, if you're playing at the next level, wherever that is, you might be playing off a guy who's making $100 million somewhere to do that job. So, how important is it for you to be, a guy night in, night out who can space the floor and be a threat to open up driving lanes for your teammates?
Yeah, I mean, that's my number one priority right now, and it's something that is clearly obvious to where the game's trending, and with everyone, how much I've watched and who I've talked to, and obviously you're 100% correct in that there's going to be guys getting paid a lot more to handle the ball, and I'm going to be ready to I think that's almost where I'm as dangerous, where I'm either going to be ready to spot up or even more so attack those closeouts. I think that's something where I'm going to be put in positions to really make plays, and I'll be the guy on the receiving end of getting that 4-on-3 on the other side, and then transition that in the next advantage. So I really it's something where this year too, the last few years I think I've shot 38, 41, and now 37 from three, and I think this year, especially, I've increased my difficulty with those 3-pointers, a lot of off the dribble. And I think that's a huge thing of where I have a good framework, and it's something I really work with. And also, I think this year I've really cleaned up the shot form I have. I think over the last couple of years, that's kind of been in question. And I had a little bit more of a hitch, and now I have a higher release. And I think it looks a lot smoother. And so I think all those factors show that, I'm putting together a good, structure with my shooting, and, I'm kind of ready for that. Understanding of, I'm going to be sitting in the corner a lot and being ready to play off other guys. So I think it's something where I'm really ready for that process, and that's my main focus.
I do want to say really quickly, Drew, I think what you mentioned is really, really important, right? The fact that at least you're taking these shots, at least you have, or you're in the frame of mind where you're willing to put up these types of shots. And like you mentioned, like I think the biggest thing, if we look at your career stats in college, your percentages have gone up pretty much every year. From your freshman year, you're at 29 to 32 to 38 to 41. And then this year you're at 37. But as you mentioned, the overall difficulty of the types of shots that you're taking are a lot harder this year, in my opinion, a lot off the dribble. And I think that's the type of stuff where I feel like an NBA front office, they're going to see, oh, this guy isn't just standing in the corner taking wide open threes, but he's doing this off of combo moves. He's doing this off of the pick and roll. He's doing this with the ball in his hands, doing other things. Also, as we just mentioned, we did a whole segment on your passing. And I feel like all this goes back to that versatility piece, right? Whether it's the passing or the defense or the handle or whatever, like there's so many layers to your game. And I think even your shooting, I think a lot of people might be like, oh, he's a really good shooter. But even that statement alone, I think could be a little reductive, right? Because of the different types of shots you're taking and stuff like that. So I think it's important to note that you're not just catching in the corner, putting up jump shots.
Yeah,
no, I
totally
mean,
agree. Oh yeah, sorry.
No, like
yeah, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You explain. We'll get into this in a minute.
I was just gonna say a brief thing is like, even like I think 2 clips ago showing or last clip from 2 years ago, my shot looks completely different than it did. In a better way. I think it's a lot higher release, and it looks a lot smoother. So I think that's part of my progression with my shot that I've been very happy with.
Yeah, because this one right here is super smooth, and not only is it smooth, but you're being chased around by Jalen Clark, who we did one of these with, who is averaging close to 3 steals a game and is, probably the best defender in college basketball at playing those passing lanes. So when you have a guy like Jalen Clark, whose, job is to make sure that you're not running off of movement shots like this, what do you approach that game, going into it, knowing that, he's going to be chasing you around, hounding you, and how do you approach scenarios like this where, you got to kind of do little flares and run guys off different screens and do all that little crafty stuff to get open?
Yeah, I think it's an awesome challenge to be able to, be a part of. And, obviously understanding that, his number one job, like you said, is to, keep the ball out of my hands. And, that he tries to, I've had many games where he denies, and he really just tries to, kind of make a lot of the other guys score. So it's another year where I think I've found more creative ways to, I think I've seen like analytically my best part of the year has been coming off screens like that. And I think that it's something that I've been able to find success in, and I trust a lot more than I used to with, I love coming off these screens, and, the bigs like Josh and Vince do great jobs of setting them, and Coach Enfield draws up great plays to be able to find space, because it's something where with a little bit more focus this year, I have to get more creative with how I get touches and how I get shots. So we found a lot of success this year with that. So we're hoping to continue that, and I trust to be put in the right spots with that stuff.
And these are high level difficulty of shots. And I think that, understanding when you're coming off movement like this, it kind of keeps the defense in a frenzy. And, you touched on it, Albert touched on it earlier. Like, it also opens up, different passing opportunities as guys sell out to kind of crash onto you. And, maybe your defender loses sight, and now the big has to come and, close out and help. And, now you could just make, nice, easy reads. And I think that's reflected in the fact that you're, putting up almost 5 assists a game. Going back to, this clip from a couple of seasons ago, and, you mentioned your form is a little bit different, but even still, you're playing a nice little 2-man game. And I'm highlighting this clip because you're playing that 2-man game with Evan Mobley, who, was a top 3 pick in the draft. And it shows like that you can seamlessly fit into and play off of a guy who's one of the best players on his team. So, what was it like playing with Evan, and seeing him develop over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, especially it was my first year there and coming in, and I was just like, this kid's definitely going to be something. And you could notice it on day one, with the energy and just seeing how he plays and how easy everything came to him. And even the biggest thing for him, I thought, was that he was just so unselfish. There were games, even to a fault, where there were games at halftime where coach would have to beg him to shoot more shots and tell him like, you're way better than the guy guarding you. So I think to give him credit, that's something that not a lot of guys with that amount of publicity and hype and media have, and I think that's just what makes him such a, even at with the Cavaliers and at the NBA, such like another level valuable of a plug-in piece where he can do anything on the court, including just be a star in every category. So it was obviously really fun to be able to play with him for a full year and see him develop, and it's been awesome to see him just these past couple of years in the NBA and just crush it. So it's really cool.
First thing I wanted to say was, from the clip we just saw, clearly your jump shot has gotten a lot smoother, a lot prettier. So wanted to give you some credit there. But just to piggyback off of what Corey said, playing with a guy like Evan Mobley, like, obviously, dude, you're going to be ambitious for yourself. You want to play well. You want to do things well as well. But was there ever any pressure? You mentioned that he was such a highly touted prospect, a guy that was being discussed at the very top of the NBA draft. Did you ever have any moments, whether it was you or your teammates, where you felt like you didn't want to mess things up for him? And once again, like, that's like a weird way to think about it, because you're just trying to play your own game. But as you mentioned, there's so much media attention for a guy like that. Is that ever in your mind, or was he just so cool where he was like, dude, like, I'm just a part of the team type of thing?
Yeah, no, I'm saying as genuine as I can. He's as normal a guy and like level-headed as it comes, and he never really talked about that stuff, and you could even call him a little bit quieter than the average guy, and he took care of business, and he made it so easy for us because he put us in so many good spots. And looking back on it, I always think my first year how easy it was to get open shots and play off those advantages that he'd create. And it's just, and now being in, like, obviously not as similar as being Evan Mobley, but being put into the double teams, I realized how much attention he actually drew a couple years ago. So but he is as good of a guy, a level-headed as guy, and everything to that aspect, to where like we said, he's completely unselfish, and we'd have to beg him to shoot the ball more. And so it was more of just making that that big Elite Eight run that we did that really put the pressure on us as we got going. But he really kept everything calm and steered the ship for us.
What is the atmosphere like? Just or what do you feel before games like that? I mean, you as a kid, you grow up like your dream playing March Madness, right? Like, as you continue to win games and play in those types of scenarios, what is that like? Is there like an inner kid in you that's just like, holy shit, like I get to do this?
Yeah, 100%. I think especially because I wasn't necessarily the biggest recruit out of high school when I first got to it, and I was it was during COVID, and we were stuck in a hotel for a few weeks in the bubble. But there's definitely a few self-reflection moments where I'm like, wow, this is like crazy that I'm in this situation. And especially my first year at USC, and it couldn't have gone any better. And it's something where I really try, and even to today, remember like that little kid who was really even wanting to I remember getting being in certain spots in like vacation where we'd run into like a Division III basketball team, and I'd be like, oh, can I get all your autographs, all this stuff. And so it's something where I've really appreciated every year of progression and where I've got to. And sometimes I forget that, and I try and really reflect and understand how far I've come. So it's been great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And getting to experience that is cool to see. Diving back into your game, I think it would be unfair to just label you as like a guy who has to spot up off the ball or run off movement, because there's some creation aspects to your game that are really fun. So you have this, seems to be one of kind of like your go-to moves, where you use your size to back guys down and kind of hit a little turnaround jumper over them. Where does this come from?
I think it was a lot of work over the last as I've started to fine tune my game. I think a big thing I've started to work on that I don't necessarily think it's teach enough. Maybe it's harder as a younger kid to get taught this, but shooting off balance. I think it's a huge part of people's games that is key for development. I think I use a drill that I heard Kawhi Leonard does a lot, where I warm up every day with kind of 5 spots of 3 makes going right on my right shoulder fadeaways and 3 makes going left shoulder fadeaways, and I think a lot of the game is, and I know there's a lot of catch and shoot opportunities nowadays, with a lot of good creators, but a lot of the games, you're not getting your pass right in your shooting pocket, and you got to step to the left, and you got to, you're coming off a little bit to the right, and you lose balance a little bit. So I think, working on being off balance for shots is a really beneficial thing that's helped me, and creates that extra bit of a time where, I can use my height to really just rise up, even without necessarily creating too much space over a guy who's 6'4". So it's something that I've really worked on the last few years, and I think it's an important part of kind of developing a shot and all that stuff.
Now, I know you started the season at 205. I think just watching your clips going back a couple of years to this year, I think you just, outside of you looking like you changed your shot mechanics, I think you also physically look stronger.
Mm-hmm.
How much does, that kind of like extra strength kind of help in these kind of scenarios where maybe the difference in getting off a clean look is like dipping your shoulder into the defender's chest and getting that like extra maybe millisecond of separation?
Yeah. Every little aspect's important, and that was one of the main things I got in feedback of testing the draft process last year, is putting on that little bit more weight. I ended the season and did the draft process at about 183 last year. Like I said, I'm about 196 ish right now. So, and then I'm sure once the season will end and it kind of slows down with the full games, I can get back to that 205, 210 range. So, but yeah, it's every advantage possible. I think that's one thing where I've forced teams to have to double, because I try to, if you play me one-on-one, be able to walk guys down, and I kind of try and prevent, a couple of years ago, even when I'd post up my first year here, guys would be able to take charges. I'd have to kind of lean more into it, but now I can, almost like, I watch Luka play a lot, and he just basically gets to his spots without necessarily being overly athletic, with just like his physicality and the angles he takes with walking guys down. So it's something that it gives you every advantage. And if I can get a guy to get in his back heels a little bit, that's when I can turn around and get that shot off before he can kind of even get out to reach the angle. So the physicality's helped me a lot, and I think outside offensively, even defensively, it's been able to help me guard the bigger positions and really put that chest into people when they drive. Yeah,
this is a tough shot. Like Alan Flanagan's, he's a strong dude.
Yeah,
he's a tough defender, physical guy, and you're able to back a guy like him down and use that finesse, that footwork, and shoot over the top. Who are there guys like in the NBA that you model your game after? You kind of mentioned like LeBron and Luka. Are there any other guys that you've watched on a random Thursday and you're like, oh, I'm going to try to insert that into my game?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely guys like Kevin Huerter, and other guys that I see their shot creation, be able to play off closeouts and stuff like that, and just guys that are able to do a little bit of everything. I admire guys who can make an impact any way on the floor, especially playing off closeouts and make that right read and stuff like that. So that's a guy I've looked at a lot, and just once again, any guy that can be a high level plug-in piece, I think is a guy who I try to model my game after.
I do want to say, Drew, watching your game, I'm not gonna, just because you're a guest on our pod, I'm not gonna lie and say that I think you have like the tightest handle in the world or anything like that. But we've talked about your size, we've talked about the strength that you've added. But I did want to say, like, even when you're running the pick and roll, and just overall, when I watch your game, even in one-on-one situations, I do think you have a pretty good handle. And so I did want to ask a little bit about that. I feel like it might be an underrated aspect of your game as well. If you could speak a little bit to how much you're working on that handle as well, and how much you want to continue to work on that as you want to continue to grow and blossom your game on the next level as well.
Yeah, I think that's it's a big focus for me. Right outside of 3-point shooting and weight, I think that's the next thing on my agenda to really tighten up and really be trusted. Because any advantage I can give, and getting from a random playmaker to a secondary playmaker to a primary playmaker, or wherever a team needs me in that regard, I think starts with being able to hold your own, especially against smaller guards and quicker guards, at the next level. So I think that the progression of my handle has been great. Going back and seeing high school clips and freshman year clips of me, it's just it's night and day to see those two things, especially regarding my handle, and being able to be trusted this year with ISOs against bigs, and where you have to break down guys. It's not about a back down at that point. You have to break down guys step by step. And I think creating those dribble moves is something I really trusted this year, where I used to be very pick one direction and go, but now I've been able to trust, like, I can slow down a little bit and kind of read each, footstep the guy takes and attack that exact direction. So, like you said, the handle's one of my priorities, and it's right after 3-point shooting and weight for me.
Yeah, I think like when the interesting kind of little micro detail that you mentioned towards the end there is like zeroing in on like attacking a guy's top foot or little things like that. At what point like did that kind of thing slow down for you, where instead of just kind of reacting and attacking, you were able to kind of feel like you were playing, kind of patient with pace, and you can kind of be comfortable owning the spots that you're trying to get to while also taking advantage of like the discrepancies a defender might be making in their stance?
Yeah, I think it honestly might have even happened halfway through this year, where I think because of the size mismatches, I got a little reliance on going to the post. And I think once we got to conference play, I realized that, like I said, my strengths are more trying to create off closeouts and off finding angles and gaps and certain things like that. And that's something where I was really working on in practice. And I found success attacking, in certain clips against, teams like Washington State, where they have bigger guys. And I have a few clips with that kind of showcase that. But I think that once again, developing that handle, just seeing the micro advantages I've already gotten from it, and I know there's so much more room to work with my handle. I know that if I can take that to the next level regarding practicing that, it can really open up even more aspects to my game.
Yeah, love that. Let's shift over to defense, and I'm gonna start it out by playing 2 clips against UCLA, because I think they do a really good job of showing off not only your versatility as a defender, but also your IQ on that side of the floor. So this first one, you're starting on the ball on Tyreek Campbell, a point guard, and you kind of show off everything you're looking for as far as being an on-ball defender, right? Like you're fighting through a screen on a very big screener. You get over and you finish the play by using your length to block the shot at the hoop. So when you're on a guard like this, what is your mindset in trying to take their strengths away?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because what I've actually found over the last, probably, like I said, to the handle halfway through the season, is I really like guarding the littler guards. I like being matched up on a point guard. I guarded Wendell Green from Auburn, Tiger, and KJ Simpson from Colorado. A lot of these quick guards that, these guys who put their other players in a good position. And, if the big doesn't help over, a guy like Tiger, who's, one of the best point guards in the country, can just, piece by piece break down a defense. And so I really like to be matched up on them, because I can give them a step and I can still recover with my length and stuff like that, and like in the clip shown. So it's great that I really like being matched up on point guards. It's something that I found I have more success with. I think that I'm good at, like I said, keeping that space, and if they get to a shot, I can contest late and maybe even block it, and still make up room when they try and get to the hoop. So it's something that I really have a lot of fun guarding positions that are like, the 1 or the 2, or most of the 1. Yeah.
Do you think that people kind of underrate your ability as a defender? And is that something that, I'm sure, like growing up, going to tournaments and, the white shooter label, probably, on the other end, they're like, oh, let's target this guy. Is that something that, you've kind of found throughout your career?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think I've gotten and honestly back in the day, rightfully so. I got attacked when I was a bad defender, and I think over the last couple of seasons I've really locked in on it, and I think coming with the physicality I've added, I've gotten quicker, I've gotten more athletic. I've started to do dunks I've never thought I could do ever in my life. So I think just being able to, and I think another aspect is just kind of understanding how to play defense. I've gotten a lot more steals and blocks than I ever have, and especially watching a guy like Kobe Johnson, who's my teammate, who's another great defender in our league. Seeing how he does things of reading a back line and being able to take away the passing lanes and stuff like that. But I think I really pride myself on my on-ball defense. I think my on-ball defense has gotten a lot better, and I actually, for the first point in my career, this last year, I've been having priding myself on having fun on defense. It used to be a job, but I've really started to enjoy reaping the benefits off, being able to shut down guys like hypothetically Tiger and other point guards.
If I could say, I think you mentioned it before, right? All of this kind of comes back to what you're hoping will be your calling card on the next level, right? The versatility piece, right? And just from watching your tape, I think the biggest thing that I noticed, and you mentioned it too, I think even some of your off-ball stuff, I think Corey, I don't think we have his measurements, right? But it seems like your wingspan is pretty long. Do you know how big your wingspan is?
I think it was like 6'10" and a half at
Okay.
when I measured pre-draft stuff.
That's pretty good.
I don't exactly remember. I think that was it. So it was like an
Mhm.
inch over my height or something like
That's
that.
pretty
Yeah.
good. But I think
it's
overall,
not the JJ Redick negative.
you're right.
Wingspan.
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think the anticipation stuff is there. You mentioned, right? And even in the clip that we watched, Tiger Campbell, as you mentioned, is one of the best point guards in the league, and a guy who is really good at using his pace and his quickness, but he can shoot it as well. But before you mentioned that you've been working really hard to get stronger, right? And you mentioned how it's helped you on the defensive side as well. Can you go into a little bit more detail on some of the ways that you're feeling a difference with the added muscle and the weight on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, it's something where I think in my past, my goal playing defense was just to maintain and kind of just hold my own. And I think that I've gotten to a point where I really feel confident when the ball comes to my guy, like, oh, I invite, try and make a play. And it's something where I've had a lot of fun playing defense this year, and I think the physicality has been able to help me guard all different types of positions and and being able to match up 1-4. Like we said in the NBA, you're going to get switch, and you got guys in the league who get attacked and put in pick and rolls and switches just to get attacked. And I think I've gotten to a point where I really can hold my own, and I get excited to go against unique matches. And I don't think many guys would invite like quicker guards, but I prefer to be put against a quicker guard because I feel like that's the best matchup for me. So I'm really excited to continue to add weight and continue to get more athletic. And the biggest thing for me every year is progressing every year, like I said, not plateauing. And I think that as I add 7 to 8 pounds every year, there's just so many avenues that I can open up. And I think the biggest kind of exponential growth over this last year and where I have to get to is defense, where I really think I can become a good defender. So, yeah.
What is the difference in how you approach defense, where we saw you guard a quick guard like Tiger Campbell earlier, and now you have a guy like Tabellis who has you in the post, and just noticing you're kind of bodying up, playing with your chest, and you're kind of poking and prodding the ball. So what is your strategy? When you do get a switch here against a guy who 20 and 10, really good scorer, and especially in the post, how do you approach this kind of matchup, even if it's just maybe something on switches or whatnot?
Yeah, he's a great player and obviously very crafty with how he plays. I try and just get him as off balance as I can with providing physicality early. My coach even gets on me because I sometimes go over too many back taps. I call it an attribute of mine, but they don't like me always to kind of cop out to that. But I think I got Carlson on one of those last game and at Utah, and it's great. I try and really just be physical and like in that clip, get him off balance and hopefully put him in a disservice to what he usually tries to do. So I think the added weight is really going to continue to help enforce that.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the UCLA game, and this is, what I touched on earlier, where I think it shows kind of like your understanding of the scouting report and your basketball IQ on this side of the floor. We saw you in a ball screen action earlier where you were fighting over the screen and, trying to recover. And here you're on, a guy who is, maybe you're a little bit more comfortable leaving open. So is this part of the game plan to go under against a guy like Jalen Clark, where you're kind of okay, where if he hits that, you'll live with it, where instead of, and you can beat him if he does get downhill?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's certain guys that, we're trying to get under the ball screens, and I thought I got rolled down a little bit too much. It's something where I don't like to give that much space, even for certain scout things like that. But there's definitely some personnel things that we like to do regarding that. But I think it, unfortunately, I think he hit a 3 to win that game later in the night. So there's two sides to it, but there's definitely some personnel things where I try and get under the screens, and I think for this instance it didn't work out, or worked out for the shot, but I got rolled down a little bit too much. But I definitely like to play by the person, and coach trusts me to kind of read getting over / under the ball screens and certain things like that, or gapping up a little bit more off a non-shooter. So yeah.
So, Drew, we're talking about the defensive side of the ball, and you've guarded point guards to wings to bigs and everyone all across the board. Wondering, and maybe this might be a harder question for you to answer, but wondering, you've played at USC for a couple of years now. Who was like one of the really tough guys that you've had to guard that it kind of stuck with you over the years, where you're like, damn, that guy gave me a really tough time?
Yeah. I think a game last year, Richardson gave us. We've typically on Oregon. Richardson we typically do well of, but there was one game at home where they just crushed us, and he played very well. Where he just had, I think, I don't know, maybe he had 25, but he was hitting threes everywhere. He's got a little bit of a loose handle, so I was working that game. So not necessarily like the player success for him has, always killed us, but that performance specifically did really well. Obviously when Duarte was here, he was really hard to guard, and trying to think if there's any others.
That's the second.
Mathurin.
Yeah, Mathurin and Duarte
yeah.
are the two guys who have been
Jalen
mentioned when
Clark,
we
yeah.
asked this question before, where it's like, yeah, they could do a lot.
Yeah.
One of the guys who you've had to guard, and I thought you did a good job on, this is back your first year, is a guy who's having a lot of success in the league this year as a rookie, and that's Jalen Williams. What was he like guarding him, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, you can see the potential there, and it's something where, it's funny that it's for my first year. I wasn't as good a defender as I was, but it's a guy where you could just, kind of see the talent coming out, and, it's cool to see him have a lot of success. But, fortunately, I tried to put myself in a position where I hope to, be able to guard those type of players today. It's obviously he's gotten a lot better, and I'm excited to kind of put myself in a position to be able to match up and see those guys in a practice, and hopefully try and shut them down. So it's cool to be able to see guys like that prosper, and especially from a smaller school like that, seeing guys be able to get to where they want to be. It's really great to see, and where the guy has come from, a smaller school, and now got to this point. It's great to be able to see other guys be able to do that.
If I can really quickly, so yesterday, this clip that went viral on the internet that Corey actually posted on our No Ceilings thing was Mikal Bridges talking about development and ceilings, and him coming into the draft as a little bit of an older guy. Drew, I won't beat around the bush here, but you're a little bit older here as a prospect, right? And I think sometimes very unfairly, guys who come into the league being a little bit older, they kind of get that label thrown on them, like, oh, he's the old guy. We kind of know what he is, right? Which I think is unfair, because throughout the course of this whole podcast today, all we've talked about is the progress that you've made in your game over the years here in college, and how you've literally worked on every aspect of your game, and now you find yourself being a versatile weapon for USC, and you guys are gonna fight to make a long run here in March. And just wondering, that type of stuff gets thrown around a lot, right? And they say that the ceiling is lower because you're older, whatever. What is your mentality heading into the NBA? I know you still have the season ahead of you, but you are going to be older, and people are going to be asking and saying things, along those lines. What are you hoping to say to NBA teams to kind of get them to realize, like, hey, man, like, I'm 23, but I'm not 50. I still think there's
Right.
room for me to grow. What are some of the things you think you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me has been progression. I think a lot of guys like even Duarte a few years ago kind of got he was in JUCO at some point narrative, and he's still kind of heading toward that peak. And the biggest thing I think is progression and just kind of watching how my game has changed over the last few years. Where I think a lot of guys who stick around college hypothetically, too long, they kind of have the same game every year. And I think that where my game has changed is the biggest thing for me. I think. A key is coming in is also that once again, like we touched on, I'm not going to be that kind of raw talent. I think I'm experienced enough, and once I get past that learning curve of understanding the different play style and the pace and all that stuff, I think that I can be an impact player and as much of a plug-in piece for whatever a coach needs me to do as I can be. So I think that my shtick is heading toward the game style and the position list, and I think I fit that mold, to a T. So I think that that's something where I've got a lot of room to go in my game, but I think that I've got a great kind of framework and structure to be able to help a team in that way.
Yeah, we always end our shows going back to kind of like the Wolf of Wall Street thing by doing a segment called "Sell Me This Pen," where we kind of give a little elevator pitch for the prospects that we cover. But since we have you here on the show, if you were giving an NBA team, you were telling them, they're telling you, sell me on Drew Peterson as a prospect, how would you sell an NBA team yourself?
I think the biggest thing is I'm heading toward the exact trends of the league, the positionless aspect. And I think that much less, it being a raw thing, I'm experienced and I'm proven. And I think that I can come in from day one and make an impact regarding just not having as big of a learning curve as others would. And, I think that's something where, they talk about me being 23. I think that even by, a kid who's 20 and when he's going to be 23, what do I look like? Well, I'll be 26 and I'll have another 3 years of putting on weight and getting to my peak and tightening up that handle and, learning everything. So I think it's something where I think my game style suits kind of where everything's heading in the league. So I think that's going to be the pitch that makes the most sense for me. So, and I truly believe it. I'm excited to see.
We're sold.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your game's a lot of fun. You play with flair. You do a lot of things that NBA teams are looking for, and I think that it's easy to see why you made it to USC. Looking at your team this year, looking at both Mobleys, guys who can make the right reads and make quick decisions and provide versatility on both sides of the floor. It's clear in your game, and your whole team this year has been a lot of fun to watch. Even if guys like myself in New York on the East Coast have to maybe stay up or watch a replay to do it. But so thank you for coming on the show, chopping it up with us today. If you have like social media or anything, let the people know where they could find you when you're not playing on TV.
Yeah. Instagram, Drew.Peterson11, Twitter, Drew Peterson23. That's about it.
Appreciate you coming on, Drew.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you guys. Had a lot of fun.
This is a lot of fun, and if people didn't know your game before, they definitely will now. So, would love to do this again. Good luck the rest of the way throughout this year, and hopefully you have a nice couple of months, extending your season going forward.
That's the goal. Really appreciate it, guys.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Make sure that you leave a 5-star review, a rating, share it with your friends, all the good stuff. Subscribe to NoCeilingsNBA.com. It's completely free. Get the content delivered every single day. And we will be back again next week with another episode. Make sure to stay tuned tomorrow for both of the Tylers. Until next time, we're out.